Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to another episode of our Housing for All campaign. I am so excited to have our representatives from SMASH here who are out here doing the work, making sure that we have affordable and sustainable housing in Miami-Dade County, Florida. We have the co-executive director, Adrian. Adrian, hey, how you doing, boo?
Such a pleasure to be here, Komora.
Yes, thank you. And so this is our Housing for All campaign where we're really talking about how can all of us have safe, affordable housing, whether we're renters, whether we're homeowners. This is a problem that we're seeing all across the country, right? I mean, we're seeing inflation prices, we're seeing people being priced out, we're seeing price gouging as it relates to corporate landlords. But I think here also in Florida and in Miami in particular, we have some really unique situations that are going on at the moment. So things have been really intense. We just had 2 hurricanes. We're seeing a lot of times that the insurance is not paying out the way that they're supposed to. So people are feeling really strapped around their insurance. We're seeing after the Surfside tragedy that happened a couple of years ago, that now people are getting, if you own a condo, if you're part of an HOA, you're getting these crazy special assessments that you need to all of a sudden come up with cash flow. And so even people who had originally felt secure in their housing are now starting to feel the effects of all of these sort of natural disasters or man-made disasters, depending on how you think about it, happening that are making people feel really unstable in this country. And if you don't have a nice place to securely put your head down, how can you get through the next day? How do you make sure that your equilibrium is okay? How do you ensure that you're living sort of not even just your best life, but how are you even just surviving if you don't even have a place to just lay your head down? So I'm so happy that you were able to come on here, Adrian. Can you tell us just a little bit about SMASH, why it was important for you and Trenise to partner together to work on the safe and affordable housing for Miami-Dade County residents?
Of course, not a problem. My name is Adrian Madriz. I'm the co-executive director of SMASH, which stands for Struggle for Miami's Affordable and Sustainable Housing. We're a community land trust that's building power for housing and climate justice in Miami. And we follow 5 different strategies entailing tenant organizing, transformation tools, so we can transform opponents into allies. We do research and development into different kinds of affordable housing technology. We do more community control and community operated projects like CLTs and co-ops. And then we also do policy change. And the reason we started this organization, myself and Trenise and a couple of others, is because there's a very big slum and gentrification problem in Miami. And this was back in 2014 that I really got my hands in this when I started working for the Miami Worker Center. And I got just a taste of the magnitude of this problem. And over, myself and Trenise would run into people, especially in Liberty City, who were living in the most ghastly kinds of conditions you can imagine. Actually, I'm going to share a video, if that's okay.
Yes,
Contains some of the footage of some of the places that we saw at that time, and just to give you an idea of just like how dramatic these living situations are. So go ahead and share this real quick. Okay.
I think I need to add this to the stage.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and add it.
Great. Is this it?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
So let's get started. Let me know if you cannot hear the audio.
In my toilet. Do you see this? Do you see how I'm living? Mm-hmm. A rat in my fucking toilet.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? And this is what today's date is. What's today's date? Denise, what's today's date?
16.
March 16, 2015. This is the mold and mildew in my bathroom, apartment 21. I live at 1231 Northwest 61st Street. And this is my management's cure to my mold and mildew. Paint stripper.
What?
Yeah. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea of kind of like how bad things can be. And we saw that all the time. And by the way, I'm just getting over a cold, and I know that my voice must sound extra nasally and extra condescending as a result. So I really apologize to all of your viewers. I promise I'm a very nice person. I'm not a snob and a condescending, like.
No, you sound fine,
Okay.
Adrian. You're
Okay.
fine.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, the problem is very widespread. There's hundreds of people that are going through this kind of slum right now in Miami. And for me in particular, it was so eye-opening and life-changing to see that people were going through that in a city like Miami, a city with so much excess and luxury, right?
Yeah.
Side by side, we have people driving Ferraris, living in $3 million condos, living with people who are living like this, right? And it made no sense to me that a place that has so much wealth should have such a big disparity in the living situations and in the and the actual standards of living. So that's when Trenise and I were like, okay, what can we do about this? And she said, you know, I've been studying this model and it doesn't exist in Miami right now. I think we should try to bring it here. And it's something called a community land trust. And that gets rid of your slum and your gentrification problem both with one go. Because when the people are in control of the land, they are their own landlord. They do not raise the rents on themselves. They do not let the land go into neglect or the buildings go into neglect. They do not allow the neighborhood to be gentrified as a result. And in Miami, we have a particular problem. In addition to gentrification, we have climate gentrification, which is the gentrification of high elevation, low income areas. And it just so happens that all of our low income areas are also high elevation areas. Little Haiti, Overtown, Liberty City, and Little Havana, they all sit on a ridge. And that's why these properties in these areas have become so lucrative in the last couple of years. Because in addition to the fact that they're close to the urban core, they also sit on much higher land and are less prone to flooding as a result. Right. I'm calling you right now from a cooperative that we have in Liberty City. And one of the reasons that we decided to decommodify land here in this area is because we're sitting on a ridge right now that is 29 feet above sea level. Now, that may not sound like much, but the average is 4 to 6 feet above sea level. Like if you go to Brickell, especially, anywhere in Edgewater, that is only 4 to 6 feet just above the water line. You know, but here it would take a significant amount of flooding to get to 29 feet. Right. So that's one of the other things that we have to really do. We have to not just create neighborhoods that are safe and healthy and free of slum, but we also have to do it so that we're prepared for the future. We have to have a resilient housing stock so that when the seas do rise, that our people are protected. And our people really have organic protection right now because of where they live. So it's just a matter of making sure that they're able to stay.
Yeah.
And over again, we're seeing there's so many forces and factors pushing our people out of our neighborhoods and not even to other parts of the city, but to like other states, because that's how expensive Florida has become. And one of the other reasons that people find themselves having to live with rats and roaches, like you saw in the video, is because that is the market standard right now. If you want low cost housing, that's organic, meaning it's not subsidized by the government, then that's basically what you have to deal with. So you got to choose your poison. You can either go poor or you can be eaten by rats and roaches. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I would love to talk a little bit about the co-op. So I've been to the offices. The offices are in the co-op in Liberty City. Can you talk to people about how you guys structured that, made sure that it happened, and just kind of how it works? Because I think that there might be other organizations, other people who might want to get together and have an appetite to creating a co-op. And then I would also love to talk about how did you guys actually create a corporate land trust as well?
Sure, no problem. So the land trust came first. So let me talk a little bit about the land trust, and then I'll talk about the co-op. The land trust was established immediately. In 2015, I left the Miami Worker Center, and Trenise, she was still there, but we both decided to partner up on the creation of this land trust. A land trust just needs to be incorporated, and then it's officially there. But we weren't really a land trust until we had actual land. And so it took until 2018 before we had acquired our first property. But we didn't actually have an operating property where people lived until 2022. So it was a 7-year journey. And my God, I got to tell you, that journey was filled with so many challenges, so many ups and downs, so many times where me, myself, Trenise, Mary, another co-founder, Gigi, another co-founder, Diana, another co-founder. I mean, you know, we were very excited at the beginning, and then we started hitting the first challenges, and then everybody wanted to kill each other, you know, just being real, stating facts. Because this is extremely frustrating work. As working real estate in Florida, you have to be prepared to go to war. And I'm not exaggerating about that. Like, if you're not prepared to be cunning and to do everything possible to actually acquire property, then you're not prepared to work in real estate in Florida. Like, full stop. And so we had to learn that the hard way. At first, what we were trying to do was we were trying to get land donated to us by the county or the city. And so many times the county would be like, oh, well, yes, we would love to help you out, but you know what? You don't have a track record. And most importantly, you don't have any money. So why don't you go get some money and we'll give you some land? We're like, okay, no problem. We'd go to banks. We'd go to community development financial institutions, CDFIs. We'd go to different nonprofits that dealt with this kind of lending. And then they would all give us a version of the same story. Hey, look, we love your idea. We believe in land trusts, but come back to us when you have some land. So the land people were telling us to come back when we had some money. And then the money people were telling us, come back when you have some land.
Oh my God.
We were just bouncing like that back and forth until we got our first property in 2018. And this property, we happened to acquire it because one of our board members was married to a general contractor. And this general contractor happened to have different properties in their possession that they got as a result of doing the demolition for the landlord for free. So the landlord was like, I just need to get rid of these properties. They're racking up a bajillion dollars in code violations. So let me hire this company to demolish. And then as payment, I'll just give them the properties because I can't really do anything with it. The property that we ended up acquiring has, and it still has, $300,000 in code violation liens because nobody cut the grass for 14 years.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And the thing with liens is you can rack up liens forever, but when the property transfers, the person who then buys the property is now responsible for paying those liens. And you have to get those liens paid in order for you to get title insurance on the property. Right. No insurance company is going to insure your property without those liens being paid, right? So we tried our best to figure out, okay, since we're a nonprofit, let's see if we can get the liens waived. Miami Dade County offers several programs in that regard. Then it was this whole novella where we got in contact with what's called the Infill Housing Department of Miami-Dade County to try to get those liens waived. They said originally, yeah, you know, based on what you're doing, we should be able to waive it for an administrative fee of $1,500. We're like, great, let's do it. So we bought the property. Once we had the property, we were like, okay, so how about that waiver? So we can get the liens waived for $1,500. And then the person that we had spoken to, turns out they didn't work there anymore.
Oh, gosh.
And then the new director came in as well. So there's a whole new set of policies. And they were like, well, we don't know what the previous staff agreed to, but we don't agree to that. And then we were like, but wait, you know, we bought this property and now we have all these liens. So like, please try to help us out. And they were just so not helpful at all. Wow. We took it up to the mayor. It was Mayor Jimenez at that time. And he was like, too bad, so sad. Too bad, so sad. Should have voted Republican. I mean, he didn't say that, but that's basically what the gist of it was, right? Yeah. So then we were like, well, bet, okay. So then we helped get the new mayor elected, Daniela Levincama, right? And then we took it back to her attention. And then she was like, okay, I see what's going on here. And yes, this is some BS. So Michael Liu, who was the director at the time, do something about this, give them a letter, something so that they can go ahead and present it to the title company so they can get insurance and they can start like developing this property. So there were a couple of other things that happened after that, but essentially we got a letter and that allowed us to now move forward with the development. So we're very happy about that. But look, I mean, in the interim, we acquired another property, which is the current property that I'm talking to you from. We decided that this whole lien situation was too risky even for us. And so we were like, let's try to get just a regular old property off the market. We ended up paying $465,000 for a house in Liberty City. $465,000 is a lot of money to pay for a house,
Yeah.
especially in every city. But that's what the market wanted, and that's what we eventually had to pay. And God, like getting the house was also a huge affair because the guy wanted cash. Cash is king in Miami. You can't buy a house if you're not willing to buy it in cash.
So true.
We had
It's
to go to all of our lender friends and be like, look, you pre-approved us for a loan. That's great. But what we actually need is a line of credit so that we can go ahead and take the money, purchase the property, and then we can actually refinance it with whatever long-term lending product you have. They were like, oh, we would love to help you, but we just don't offer anything like that. So then we had to go to a national organization that's one of our allies. It's called Right to the City. And we had to beg them. We had to be like, look, we know you have a revolving loan fund that's about to come online later this year, but we really need a loan right now for 465 in the form of a line of credit so that we can buy this property cash, right? And they were like, well, that's not something we normally do, but let's see what we can do. I don't know what happened, but some voodoo happened, and they convened the board of this entire organization. This is a $20 million a year organization. It's huge. And the board within a week essentially approved us a line of credit with no credit history of any kind. It was the equivalent, I think, of like finding the cure for cancer in the Holy Grail in terms of real estate and finance. So we got that loan, we got the property. Landlords fought us on so many little things all the way up until the closing. Like we were originally renting the property because we were using it as a co-op, as a rental co-op. And then when the property came up for sale, we're like, well, let's buy it because we don't want to evict people once the lease is over, which is probably what would have happened because the rents would have gone up so much. Yeah. And so we he originally was like, well, like we gave him a deposit for purchasing the property. And then when it came time to actually like move forward in that process, he was like, well, I didn't think you guys would actually purchase it. So I went and started looking at other buyers, and there's somebody else who had put in an offer. So then we had to get our attorneys involved because he was holding on to our deposit, right? Which we were using to buy the property, but he wasn't putting us in first position to buy. And then because, the attorney started stepping on his neck, he finally like backed off and said, okay, that's fine. I'll let you guys actually put in an offer for this property. And then one of the conditions for the line of credit that we got from Right to the City was that we had to immediately get it refinanced by permanent financing, which we had already been pre-approved for prior to getting the line of credit. So then when we went back to these people to get the loan to repay the line of credit, they were like, oh, but this loan can't be used to do anything other than acquire a property. And since you already have acquired this property, sorry, you don't qualify for this loan anymore. And we were like, you're shitting us. You have to be shitting us, because now we have a house with a loan, which has to be paid back in 120 days in full. It's not like it's a mortgage. I have 30 years to pay. No, I have 120 days to pay back $465,000 and no money to pay back with, because the people who said they were going to give us the money just completely backed out. And we're like, so sorry, too bad, so sad. So then I had 120 days. Well, we had 120 days to figure out where we were going to get this money from. And so we called every lender under the sun, tried to get pre-approval as quickly as possible. Underwriting usually takes a very long time. Mm-hmm. It can't take, 90 days or more. And, so we're really cutting it close. And then eventually, finally, we did get some lenders who gave us some letters of commitment. They gave it to us at the 120-day line. It was so dramatic. The day came that the loan was due, and that same day we got letters from the lenders saying that we were approved for essentially like a construction loan, which was a longer-term loan. And so we immediately turned that in, and we prayed to God that Right to the City wouldn't then put us in default for non-payment, that they would extend us. And they did extend us. They extended us for another 120 days. That's great. But would they have done it without these letters? Probably not. So it was like every single time we had that kind of a challenge, there was always some ridiculous deadline that was like breathing down our necks. And it was always like it felt like we were in like Die Hard, trying to like prevent the bomb from going off, right? Before the timer went down. And like we had to do Die Hard like 4 or 5 times just for this house, right? Craziness. So that was the process of like getting the property, and then obviously came the process of like, okay, well, we have this property. Now what are we going to use it for? So we said we were going to use it.
Adrian, can I hop here before we go into the co-op and like what you decide to use?
Sure.
I want to swing back to this whole saga that you just went through. And I think a couple of things. What kept you guys on the path? Like you knew like this is what we're supposed to do. This is what we are committed to. Because I think sometimes many people can get discouraged around some of the things that are happening. And even on a smaller scale, right? I know people who've been looking for property, they'll put in their bids, and then someone comes out and outbids them because they have cash on hand, and whereas the other folks are looking for mortgages. And then the other thing that is interesting that you mentioned, and again, you have a network, but you also thought a little bit creatively, like, okay, let me move outside of the regular lending institutions and see what other creative ways that we can get some cash on hand. We're not millionaires, but can we get some cash on hand so that we can play the same kind of game some of these other folks are playing?
That's a very good question. And the one thing about this, ever since we started the CLT, is every single time we would tell people, hey, we're starting a CLT, they'd give us this look that was like, good luck, like everybody who knew what we were trying to do, who had tried to do it previously, or who had been part of one, maybe in another state or something like that, they were all like, I hope you know what you're getting into, because this is going to be the biggest amount of work and quite possibly the greatest amount of heartache you've ever had to deal with in your entire life. Wow. And it was shocking to me because I was like, people buy property all the time, like every single day. Multiple transactions happen, right? So like if it's a matter of acquiring property, why would it be so difficult to do it if we're just doing it as a community, right? We're going to get a loan just like everybody else. And we're just like everybody else is like the caveat, right? Because the thing is, we were not like everybody else. Right. We're a nonprofit. We have no credit history. I don't even have personal credit history that I can like bring into the deal and be like, well, I bought several houses on my own. No, I had nothing like that, right? I became a personal home owner in the process of establishing this community land trust, right? And I had to do it on the power of my own finances. But at no point in time could I ever even use my personal credit to guarantee a loan for a nonprofit. It just doesn't work that way. And then on top of it, we're not just any nonprofit, right? We're a minority nonprofit, right? The majority of our board is Black. We have half our staff is Black, right? Black women typically don't really get treated by society with the greatest amount of fairness, right? And being in an organization that is essentially run by Black women, the whole organization got to feel what it's like to have to go through that kind of resistance and discrimination, right? Then on top of the fact that it's a nonprofit run by Black women, it's like a radical anti-capitalist nonprofit that wants to decommodify the housing system. Excuse me.
Yeah. Get some water.
Thank you. So it's like all of these different things are just like literally the worst elements that you can have if your intention is to try to participate in the extractive real estate system of Miami.
So it's interesting. So we know that home ownership is ownership, period, in the United States. Property rights is like it's king. It's the pinnacle of rights. It's not your human rights. It's really your property rights. It's your ownership that you have. And so as such, to really participate in this society in any real way, to have power, you have to have ownership of property, of land.
Right. That's right.
Right. But of course, it's become such a capitalistic structure that it's makes it very difficult for your average person to A, just do it on their own, but B, if you are an organization who's trying to say, like, let's decentralize capitalism and let's centralize community
Right.
into
That's the
this
point. Yeah.
ownership
That's putting
system,
people over profits.
you're going to meet with so much. I mean, we're talking specifically about Miami, but I think that the truth is we would find so much resistance across the United States, especially in our high cost of living areas.
That's correct. That's very correct. And so and those are just like, those are kinds of like the broader systemic oppressions that we're dealing with. Then there's like the logistics of putting deals together, right? I didn't have any formal development experience. Trenise doesn't either. So we were going into this as complete newbies, trying to do it with probably the most complicated setup to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So we had to learn everything from nuts to bolts about how to get a loan, how to insure a property, how to find the right property, right? How to get pre-approved so that you have the money to make an offer on the property. Then once you have an offer on the property, how to go through all of the different things you need to go through as a potential buyer to make sure you're not getting screwed on the property that you're buying, right? How to go through all the appraisals, all the inspections. Then, you know, there's obviously, before you even take out $1 to purchase a property, you have to do a lot of planning in terms of what is this business going to look like, right? What's the pro forma going to look like? What kinds of things do you need to factor into the cost of not only purchasing, but operating a property that may not immediately occur to you as somebody who's only been renting your entire life, right? How do you factor in the fact that maintenance costs go up over time? It doesn't stay the same, right? So I had to learn how to do all of that. Then, you know, there's this whole world of like, how do you get funding to develop affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
What are low-income housing tax credits? What are tax increment financing? What are new market tax credits? What are what's the difference between, you know, Section 8 vouchers, project-based Section 8 vouchers, and public housing projects, right? All of those different things, we had to learn all of that as well. Coincidentally, we developed affordable housing. I think we're the only people to do it. It's affordable, but it does not rely on any external subsidy to make it affordable. So we're paying a mortgage, we're paying full price for the mortgage. And the way we have made this place affordable is through community. Everybody lives together and we all share the costs. And as a result, nobody has to pay more than $800 a month on their rent. $800 a month is a very, very, very affordable rent by Miami standards. But the way that we're paying for it is, well, yeah, we all have to share the bathrooms, share the kitchen, share the common spaces, all of those different things. So that's one of the other things that's made this so difficult, is like, we're not just trying to purchase property and we're not just trying to operate it the way all other properties are operated. We're trying to operate it in a way that is extremely unorthodox, that people in Miami are not used to. And we're trying to prove that it is a superior system to the current system, right? And the fact is that if it's more affordable, it is superior because it's so incredibly unaffordable to live in anything else. But the affordability equation has really caught us by surprise, because we thought if we're giving people housing that is this affordable, then people are going to be very eager to live here. And at the beginning they are, but then the pressures of living in a cooperative are very different from living in any kind of a single family unit. And it's to the point where, you know, we have lost some people that they've moved out because they were like, this is too much, right? I can't deal with this. And there are a lot of people who, you know, even though we do have a lot of demand, it's not as much demand as we would have thought we would have had, considering the amount of people who need affordable housing in Miami. And a lot of that is due to the fact that, yes, people are desperate. Yes, the rent is too damn high. Yes, everything is damn expensive. But am I willing to live with other people in order to get around that problem? I don't know. I'm willing to explore other options, like living with my parents longer, staying with my spouse who I divorced several years ago, maybe a little bit longer, right? We don't get along, but I mean, we can make that work, right? People are doing everything in their power. People live in their cars. People do all these kinds of things to avoid having to live with other people. It's crazy. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, for the people who live here, yes, it's an adjustment, but they wouldn't be living anywhere else. Because once they realize, oh yes, this really does work. By sharing the cost like this, it's not just the cost of the rent, it's the cost of everything that all of a sudden goes down.
I was about to.
I actually have real financial freedom to be able to do what I've always wanted to do.
I was curious about that. So the rent includes and utilities as well. So like all the utilities to run the household. And then how many distinct households live within the cooperative currently?
6. And it's a total of 9 people.
Okay.
9 people that we give housing to.
And I don't know how else to say this. So then they pay their $800. Does that go? Is there any sort of income being made from that goes back into the community land trust, or you guys just split the costs of the mortgage and the running of the household evenly, and everyone just pays their even fair share, and that's it?
That's correct. The house has its own bank account. Residents, not all of them, but residents of the house elected representatives to be co-signers on the bank. They all have access to the statements, to the financial information. They know how much money is going in, how much money is going out. For all intents and purposes, even though the people who are living here technically are renting, they own the house. They own it as part of a greater community. And we want to enhance the level of ownership as well. We want to turn this into something called a limited equity cooperative, where people are not paying rent. What they're doing is they're paying a mortgage for their individual share of the house. And the only reason we haven't been able to do that yet is because we still need to find a lender who's willing to lend on a portion of a house and not the whole house. That's a very new concept in the world of lending. And there are successful limited equity cooperatives in places like California and New York, but they're not doing national loans. So we're still in the process of figuring out, like, what does that lending environment look like? And just like with the line of credit that we had to, like, pull out of a hat like a rabbit, and just like all the other things that we've had to do to really make this work. The limited equity cooperative, and then another platform that we're working on that's going to be able to, like, fractionalize shares of a house.
So I was just going to say, you can use fractionalization.
Yes. All of that is stuff that we have to innovate. We have to put it together as we're going. We have to operate this, and we have to, like, reinvent the wheel when it comes to how it is that we structure housing deals going forward in the future. There's a lot going on here. For an organization that's only 2 people, now we're growing to 3 people.
Right, yeah.
And that only owns 3 properties at this point. We are doing quite a bit when it comes to innovating how it is that people are going to finance and build housing in the future.
So I do want to talk a little bit about what is the growth sustainability play. To me, it feels that because you guys have done so much work, in some ways you can kind of be consultants to other folks who are thinking about doing this. And also it's another earned revenue play potentially for the organization. Have you guys been doing that? Have you thought about codifying some of the learnings that you've had? Because part of this platform that we're doing is, what can people do on their own to do this kind of work as well? Yeah, we're giving out education, we're giving out resources, but it's really about empowering folks with the knowledge to say, okay, cool, this sounds like something I want to do. I want to figure out how to come with my community or with my family. Maybe we create a family land trust or whatever the case may be, and we figure out what that kind of looks like. So would love to hear, Adrian, a little bit more about I guess maybe some of the learnings and the templates, if you're doing that, in terms of helping other folks establish this.
Well, I appreciate that because it's always good to have people looking out for our bottom line. That's for sure. We are anti-capitalist, and so we don't believe in charging people for this information. And so we have meetings every month in which we invite people to come to our space for free, and we'll even feed them for free, so that we can give them this information, everything that I've shared with you and more, and do technical assistance and help people, which we do all the time. We get calls all the time from people who want to do their own land trusts and co-ops for free, because we believe what's more important than maybe like a consulting fee is building a real base for housing and climate justice in Miami. And we can't do that effectively if we don't have as many people as possible participating and absorbing and consuming this information. So we do those meetings on a monthly basis. I highly encourage all of your listeners and watchers to participate in those meetings. We do them on the second Wednesday of every month. So we have another one coming up in November as well. And our members run the organization. Members also elect our board. They run for our board and they elect our board. And they are the ones who run the organization. Members are the ones who live in our housing. Members are the ones who help us with all of our strategic plans and our working groups as well. This is 100% member-led. And then the other thing is we also do get a lot of benefit from going out of town and presenting on what we do at different conferences and different like workshops and seminars and things like that, which we've tried to do more of, especially recently.
Yeah. Because
that now puts us in front of other potential supporters and other potential funders, right? And sometimes, most times actually, if we're presenting at a workshop or something like that, they will give us a scholarship to participate, to go and attend. And then we only have to cover airfare, or maybe they'll even give us the registration and the hotel. Sometimes if we're really lucky, they give us registration, hotel, and airfare. Yeah. And then it really works out to be very lucrative for us. And so, and we've been to a lot of different conferences. For Right to the City, they have their own conferences. We've presented there several times. We presented at the the Climate Justice Alliance conference, which is another national alliance. We presented at in New Orleans. We went to Power Shift last year. We presented there. So we do a lot of presentations nationwide when it comes to this information because we know that there's a real thirst and a demand to figure out how to get this done, especially on a technical level. And people are always very eager to figure out like how to do that. One of the other things that we really strongly believe in is in transformation tools and figuring out ways to get people this information and not put it in a dry presentation or even like a lecture like I'm doing right now, which is not our ideal format, but to do it in the most fun way possible. And so actually behind me, there's this board game that we play sometimes. It's called House of Justice.
All right, nice.
In the process of playing it, you get like Housing Justice 101 education on all of these different concepts on like, what does it mean to organize with your neighbors? What exactly do you do when you're organizing for housing justice? Like, how do you structure a campaign? What does that campaign then aim to do? Topple landlords, topple developers, topple governments. How do you get it to do that? How do you build power effectively? All of those different things you learn by playing this game. And then the more people that play it, the more people we have trained now on how to fight for housing justice broadly.
I love that. I can go in so many different directions. I'm trying to figure out where exactly. But when you were talking, I was like, "Oh, this is like it's like the new monopoly."
It's like the new monopoly. It's the anti-monopoly, right? Monopoly promotes capitalism, and we promote community.
With the community pieces there. I love that. When you say it's a membership-led organization, is there a particular structure that SMASH is under from like a tax code perspective so that everything is membership-based? Again, I'm asking these questions for people who might want to go and set this up for themselves.
Well, you can be just a regular nonprofit and have a member base. It's really more like established in our bylaws exactly how it is that we elect our board members and who's eligible to vote for board members. Sorry, I had a call coming in. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're happy to share our bylaws so people can structure themselves after us the way that we've done it. But it's not hard to have a member-led organization. The hard thing is, I guess, letting go of your ego enough to give other people control of what you're putting together. Because I care very deeply about this organization. It is definitely, I don't have any children of my own. It is the closest that I will have to a child. Trenise also cares very deeply, and we also care very deeply about the direction of the organization. But we have to constantly, over and over, every single day, it is a discipline, remind ourselves that, yes, we are invested in this, but it is not ours. We don't own the organization. We can't just pick up and do whatever we want whenever we want. We have to make sure that we are always operating as a united front so that we have the maximum power to be able to accomplish all of our goals. And the only way we can make that happen is if our members are truly in the driver's seat. They have real mechanisms of power as board members and as members. And every single time we're making a big decision, whether it be about who's on the board or what kind of project should we do next or what kind of campaign should we do next, all of those decisions come from the members themselves, right? And there's some leeway I have, of course. The members aren't able to be present in every single decision that's made, right? Like every member isn't going to help me decide what pack of batteries to buy. If we're running out of batteries or whatever, I'm not necessarily going to open it up for a vote. But on the really important things, like where are we going to build? What are we going to build? Who's going to be in charge of this? What the neighborhood structure is going to look like? All of those things, we involve the community as much as possible. And we make sure that they understand that this is theirs. It's not ours. It belongs to us, all of us.
All of us. I love that. So you and I have gotten to know each other because we're canvassing around a petition currently. So do you want to talk about the 1.5 million signatures that we need around housing justice and climate justice campaigning? Love for you to just talk a little bit more about what that petition is, what it says, and then if anyone wants to sign up for that petition in the show notes, I will be putting that link so that people can go ahead and put their name on the dotted line.
And we really appreciate that. Yes. So our main campaign is something called the Miami Housing Justice Agenda. And this is our big campaign to literally make housing a human right in Miami. So that's a big concept, right? That's a big, hairy, audacious goal. How exactly does it work? We operate under the theory of change that if we build enough power, meaning we have enough people that are advocating for this, that we can change any policy in Miami to whatever we want. And by and large, for the things that have power, that's always been the case. I'll give you the perfect example. Let's say I were to go to City Hall today, and at the podium to make a public comment, I make a public comment, and I'm like, y'all, we have a housing crisis. There are 90,000 people on the public housing waiting list. Miami's the most rent-burdened city in America. We need 210,000 units of affordable housing in order to meet the current demand, according to the most recent study by FIU and UF, right? Shoot at them all the statistics. And I'll tell them, listen, we need to allocate, call it $10 million, which is really nothing. You're really looking at building, if you're talking 10 million and each house is 500,000, you're talking about building 20 houses, right? $10 million to the production of actual affordable housing. How likely it is, do you think, that the city will turn on a dime and start putting $10 million towards the production of affordable housing based on that public comment?
I mean, it's things that they probably already know anyway, so no.
Probably already know, right? They're still not doing anything about it. They see we have a very significant street homelessness problem as well. See Absolutely. It every day. Yep. The only thing they want to do about it is throw people in jail. But building them a house, how dare you even suggest, right? That's even a thing, right? Now, let's say I go in there and I'm like, hey, just an idea. I know we already have like 25 monuments to the Cuban exile experience and the revolution and, the Bay of Pigs invasion and all of these different things. But I think we could maybe use one more. Now, all of a sudden, do you think they'll take me seriously?
Oh, they'll definitely take you seriously.
Yeah, right. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." Like, where do you want to put it?
For a particular constituency, and
we already have 10 of them on 13th Avenue alone. Let's put an 11th. Why not? The reason that I have so much more power when it comes to advocating for another Cuban monument versus advocating for the production of housing that people need to live, right, is because there is a huge base of power in Miami that puts the Cuban exile experience at the absolute top of the podium when it comes to matters of political importance.
Yeah.
And puts matters of housing insecurity at the absolute bottom.
Yeah.
And until that base changes their prioritization, I'm not against Cuban monuments. What happened in Cuba was horrible. What is happening in Cuba is horrible, right? But for all of these Cuban monuments to be there, and for us to still not have enough money to be able to handle our very pressing and long-standing housing challenges seems to me like our priorities need to change just a little bit.
Yeah.
As Miamians. And so what this campaign is doing is it's taking this argument to people's doors. And we're asking them to sign a pledge saying, I do believe that housing as a human right should be a priority of our society, of our government.
Yeah.
And once you sign that pledge, you're sending an email or a text or whatever automatically to your representatives, your city council person, your county commissioner, your state representatives, your congresspeople, all the way up to the president of the United States, letting them know that you are in favor of the values and policies outlined in the Miami Housing Justice Agenda, and that you believe that housing as a human right should be priority number one.
Yeah.
Now, if we have a couple thousand people do that, that's great. Maybe it'll shift things, maybe it won't. So you got to think about, okay, well, one, how much power is enough power? Like, when do we really feel like we will have enough people to really move this? And the reality is we don't know exactly how many it is, but we can be pretty damn sure that if we get 1.5 million pledges, which is effectively half the population of Miami-Dade County, to pledge to this, that we will pretty much have the power to do whatever we want. It's not exactly 1.5. It's definitely somewhere between 0 and 1.5. And I can't tell you exactly what the number is, but we know without a shadow of a doubt, though, if we get to 1.5 and literally half of this county, 51%, is advocating for this to happen, it will happen.
So I just want to let everyone know that I signed the pledge. I signed the pledge, I think, the day that I met Adrian and Trenise. And I got emails letting me know that it had gone all the way to all of my political representatives based off of my zip code. And then I actually had our governor of Florida respond back. He actually, I mean, I'm sure it was just I have to go back to the email, and I'm sure it was just a form email, but it was basically like, you know, we saw that you can get housing as XYZ, and the team will look at it. But my point is, it wasn't just BS. It has actually gone out, and then people have started to respond back to that petition. So I do want to give kudos to the team at Smash for ensuring that all I have to do is do one thing, and then they do all the work disseminating the idea that I believe that housing is absolutely a human right for everyone. And of course, living here in Miami-Dade County for the folks here in Miami-Dade. And so this brings me now, I think, to something else that we've talked a bit about earlier. We were talking about the saga of acquiring the properties. And even now, the importance of understanding what's going on with your local politics and who are your local politicians. We know that we have a national election coming up, and that is obviously important for many, many reasons. But the same enthusiasm that we see at the national level, why is it important that we see the same enthusiasm at the community level?
I hope we actually see more enthusiasm at the local level than we'll see.
Well, yes, I agree too.
The number of people that are sleeping on this election, baby, let me tell you, good God, I am concerned. I am shocked. I am sweating every night in my sleep. I'm like, oh my God, is there going to be a United States of America on November 6th? You know? I think, on a practical matter, let's just state this. All of the things that people usually complain about, and I don't mean complain like it's a bad thing. I mean, people have legitimate things that they have to be upset about. But things like housing, things like the cost of living, things like your freedom of speech, especially in Florida, all of those different kinds of things, your local government has way more power and way more of an immediate effect on those things than the federal government does.
Yeah.
And I think this is especially true when it comes to housing, because the reality is that with the exception of public housing, the federal government has very little to do with how affordable housing is financed, how the majority of how affordable housing is financed. Most of the affordable housing that is built in Florida is financed using something called low-income housing tax credits, which is a federal tax credit program, but the administration of it is handled by the state.
Right.
And so the state will ultimately decide how much affordable housing is built. And the reality is the state could be doing much more. There was a fund, an affordable housing trust fund, that was established in 1992. It's called the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And if it would have had all the money it needs to have, we probably wouldn't have an affordable housing problem in Florida. We'd probably have more than enough housing for everybody. The issue is that a couple of years after it was established, the Florida legislature, controlled by, we all know which party, I'm not even going to mention them, said, you know, we have these deficits in the budget. Why don't we use some of this affordable housing trust fund money and use it to cover the deficits in the budget when it comes to everything else? They did it one year, and then they did it the next year, and then they did it the following year, and they have been doing it every single year ever since, to the point where now almost $2 billion have been swept out of that fund that should have gone into the production of affordable housing. $2 billion is a lot of money. And not just because you're looking at it in terms of like, well, how many houses does that build? That's $2 billion that then can be used to leverage additional money for the production of affordable housing. And usually the way that leveraging works, it's 10 to 1. So meaning for every dollar that you put in as the government, you're able to leverage about $9 in private money, right? You're essentially like multiplying it by 10. So really we're missing out on like $20 billion that could have gone to the production of affordable housing. And I was about to say the party, but the legislature of Florida has been adamant that there is no affordable housing crisis in Florida, and therefore we don't need to have that big of a housing trust fund, and we should be using that money instead to cover other things in the budget. And so that is probably the biggest reason why Florida has become so unaffordable. And if you look at all of these lists where we rank number one in the worst ways possible, Florida is normally in the top 5 of the most unaffordable states in the country, right? Yeah. If not outright number 1. And Miami in particular is almost always consistently ranked number 1 most unaffordable city and most rent burdened city, because it's the combination of the very high rents with the extremely low incomes. Yeah. So the outright rent is higher in New York and San Francisco. That's true. People love to point that out, and in LA. But if you combine the average income with the average rent, there's no question. Miami ranks number 1. We're right. Very unaffordable here. Yeah. Okay. The other problem is it used to be that, especially in years past, local municipalities could do more to incentivize the production of affordable housing and give developers more incentives to actually put more affordable units in their larger projects. There were things like voluntary inclusionary zoning, which I'm not a fan of. I want mandatory inclusionary zoning, but that's basically where they are mandated to include units of affordable housing in their project. So if they have to build a 100-unit tower, maybe 20 of those units have to be made affordable, something like that, right? Huh. It used to be that there was a voluntary program to incentivize this. And then the state preempted that. And they were like, no, we don't want the cities to have anything to do with that. So now we're going to regulate that. And they completely got rid of the incentive. The Tenant Bill of Rights that was passed in 2021, they preempted that as well. It would have offered many additional protections to tenants, tenants in Miami in particular, with the biggest one being that your landlord has to give you a copy of your rights as a tenant to go along with your lease at signing. And if they fail to do that, you could take them to court for failing to inform you of that, right? Now that's no longer a requirement because the state regulates that. Pretty much every single positive thing that the city or the county could have done to make housing more affordable and much more protected for tenants has been preempted and negated by the state.
By the state. Wow. Mm-hmm.
And we all know who runs the state.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Listen, we're coming up on time. I have learned so much. So thank you, first of all, Adrian. Can you tell people how they can keep in contact with you? And if there's anything that I did not cover that you wanted to make sure that the audience heard, please feel free to do that now.
It has been just such an amazing pleasure. I really appreciate it. I will say one last thing, one last message, and then I'll give you all our website and stuff like that. Nothing that we have talked about today is truly going to change unless we get everybody to adopt values that prioritize people over profits. That's why I wear a hat all the time that says homes for people, not for profits.
Yeah.
And I think that's even more important than whatever technology, whatever model we can put together that builds affordable housing, makes it better, stronger, faster, all of those different things. Because you could have the best ideas in the world, but if there is no political will to actually implement those ideas, you might as well not even have them. And we're missing a lot of political will right now. There are most people that are in this state. I love them. I really do. I've lived here my entire life. I'm 305 till I die. But most people here think about themselves and how they can enrich themselves, even if it comes at the expense of other people. And I'm not saying that's you, but I'm sure it's somebody that you know. And until the majority of the people we know function more along this philosophy versus that philosophy, then nothing will change.
Yeah.
And I find that to always be a very bitter pill to swallow for a lot of people. They feel like I'm being very condescending towards them and I'm judging them and all these different things. And look, I mean, I like nice things. I do. I like having an apartment, for example, where I have a nice warm bed to sleep in, right? That's clean. There's no roaches. There's no rats. There is no physical damage to the structure, right? I can afford it. And all of those different things are, at this point in time, a luxury. If you really look at it and how many people are actually able to enjoy those things, it's a luxury to have those things.
Wow.
And so I'm not saying people shouldn't have nice things. I am saying, though, that we do have to think about our priorities a little bit as a society. If the only people who are able to have nice things are the people who can afford it.
Wow.
And that's it. Please go to our website, smash.miami, sign the pledge, and we look forward to working with you and seeing you at our next meeting.
Absolutely. Adrian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Love the work that you guys are all doing at Smash. Please, Miami-Dade, get involved. Second Wednesdays, go to smash.miami, sign the petition, and then we will see you here again next Wednesday at noon. Thank you so much. Peace.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk.
Absolutely.